So in general, in this group, we are interested in building new robots, such as Haile, that extend and expand musical expression, musical creativity, musical learning. So all the instruments that we build have the idea that we can create new music and expand what we think about music, or what music is. There is a promise of allowing a robot to do something that human can't, and that hopefully will drive this to a new musical experience.
The idea is to create a situation that would inspire the players to come up with a new musical idea. The robot takes some of the emotional inspiration from the human, and the human takes some of the complex ideas that are generated through some algorithm and builds off of those to come up with a new idea. So I think it's going to produce something new and hopefully interesting.
evolutionary algorithms, or genetic algorithms that mimic biological evolution, are one promising approach to making machines generate original and valuable artistic outcomes. So how can evolution make a machine musically creative? Well, instead of organisms, we can start with an initial population of musical phrases. And a basic algorithm that mimics reproduction and random mutations by switching some parts, combining others, and replacing random notes. Now that we have a new generation of phrases, we can apply selection using an operation called a fitness function. Just as biological fitness is determined by external environmental pressures, our fitness function can be determined by an external melody chosen by human musicians or music fans to represent the ultimate beautiful melody. The algorithm can then compare between our musical phrases and that beautiful melody, and select only the phrases that are most similar to it. Once the least similar sequences are weeded out, the algorithm can reapply mutation and recombination to what's left, select the most similar or fitted ones again from the new generation, and repeat for many generations. Thanks to the presence of human aesthetic in the process, we'll theoretically generate melodies we would consider beautiful.
Shimmy started out as an animated character on the screen, where we worked to try to nail down his personality, and then we took that and transferred that into the real world.
It was important to us that Shimmy be able to work as a great loudspeaker. So we worked to combine high-quality drivers and amplifiers with the smoothest, most quiet motors available. Inside the robot, we're taking care of all the low-level control of the motion, but all of the personality and intelligence, really the heavy lifting, is being done on the smartphone end.
Shimmy, look at me. Do you have Justin Bieber? Do you have hot chocolate? Let's hear it.
And one of the things that's really cool about that is that if you upgrade your smartphone and gain new capabilities, you're actually giving new capabilities to your robot, too.
It also learns you. It looks at you, so it knows if you like a song or don't like a song, and personally become your musical buddy. much. We decided to start with some music before we give you a little more explanation and some personal presentations. I'm Gil Weinberg, and with me here is Mason Brentan. He worked most of the machine learning here. He will talk a little bit later. Deepak Gopinath, a former student. And I want to maybe explain a little bit more before I introduce the guest musician, who you may have seen helping us with the marimba. It's funny, all the robots so far work, but the one thing that kind of failed on us is the marimba. It was a little wobbly, as you may have seen. But before we describe the next project that I invite our guest, I want to tell you a little bit more about what we're doing here. As you could have heard, the robot is listening to us and responding to us. This is Shimon, which means something like a little listener in Hebrew, because the main idea about Shimon is that it would listen to what we play, understand music the way we humans understand music. So it knows what is dissonance, rhythm that may be most syncopated or not. It will know if we have tension or release. It understands the tonal context, and it will know how to resolve a tension or release. And we tried multiple ways to go about AI, about allowing robot, Shimon, to be creative. And the main motto that we have is that the robot would listen like a human and improvise like a machine. So when it listens like humans, it understands music the same way we do to create connection with us, so we can be on the same ground. But when it improvises, as you may have seen in one of the videos, it uses all kinds of algorithms that humans never use, either because they can't or they're very unlikely to think this way, such as genetic algorithm or fractals or kind of cellular automata or kind of processes that take how it understands music like us, but push it to a different direction that would make me play differently than when I play with humans, and maybe even think about music differently than when I play with humans, how I think about music when I play with humans. So we put a bunch of these videos online, and something like 4 or 5 years ago, I received an email from Jason Barnes, who saw some of our videos, and he had an accident that I will invite him to tell you about and see what we developed for him. Jason?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jason Barnes. I'm 27 years old. I'm a musician and an amputee from Atlanta, Georgia. I've been into music from a very young age. I started playing guitar, bass, and eventually picked up the drums. When I was 22 years old, I was involved in an electrical accident at work, which resulted in me being hospitalized for over a month and the ultimate amputation of my right hand. After being released from the hospital over the next few months, I was extremely depressed and devastated, and I had no idea how I'd carry on in life and as a musician. With determination and the help of friends and the help of Hanger Clinic, I developed my own prosthesis for playing drums, and shortly thereafter enrolled into Atlanta Institute of Music and Media. During my time there, I had a teacher by the name of Eric Sanders, who during my first private lesson was interested on my capabilities and limitations. And so I showed him what I had and explained to him my idea of developing a more advanced myoelectric robotic drumming prosthesis. He was familiar with some of Gil Weinberg's robots, Shimon in particular, and some of his other musical robots, and had showed me some videos, and at the time I thought this was a completely far-fetched idea. I had no knowledge of robotics, the funding to do this. I just didn't think it was going to happen. About a week later, he had reached out to someone, and Gil Weinberg and his team emailed me, said they were interested in helping me build this arm that we're going to demonstrate for you guys now in a second.
So as Jason sets up to have some demos that you understand what's in his arm before he plays some music that he wrote, let me tell you a little bit about what we developed for him. First of all, what he really wanted is to be able to have wrist motion again and be able to grip the stick tight or loose, because that's one of the most expressive tools that drummers have. And with his makeshift prosthetic, he couldn't have done it. He could just hit, but he couldn't create something that is loose or tight that creates this kind of bounce that will bring him the expression. So that's what he basically asked me to do. So I talked with my team, and we also worked with a company that helped us develop the robot, Mecca, in California. And the first thing that we wanted to do is to actually give him what he wants. But then I asked Jason if he's willing to play with us more and get him some more capabilities and he was very open to that. But let's start first with the first things that we developed for him. Jason, maybe you can try to show how does it feel when, with the EMG, and we'll show a video in a second, with the EMG control that senses the electric activity of his muscle, he is holding the stick very tight, and the hit sounds like this. And then when he loosens it, we can sense it, and the hit would sound something like this. It's a little looser. It depends on exactly what's the tension rate of the arm. But now we can have some different kind of subtleties in the way he plays drum. But because we have these motors, we allowed him also to be able to play rhythms. So just play something that is a beat from his own arm. And he can also play very fast beats, faster than any humans. This is 20 hertz, that no human can play 20 hits per second. So now he can create new timbres, a new color of sound. And then I asked him, how about have another stick that has maybe a mind of its own that can play by itself? So he controls one of the arms, but the other stick, one of the sticks, but the other stick can create his own rhythms based on the machine listening and all of the musical ideas that we have, and he has to adjust to it. Let's see how this works. That's the second stick. When he lifts his arm, he can play some very interesting polyrhythms. So one stick can play 20 hertz, the other stick can play 19 hertz, and he creates all kind of sophisticated rhythms that humans can't. And I think maybe now, before Jason gets ready to play the piece that he wrote, Earth, maybe we'll show a video that shows what happens under the hood, how exactly the EMG works.
So I demonstrate how I control the robotic drumming prosthesis using my forearm muscle. The EMG electrodes attached to my arm send very low latency signals to trigger the robotic stick when I contract my muscle. This allows me to operate the arm in different ways. For example, I can trigger a hit with every contraction, or toggle between different automatic drumming states. This allows me to create cool interactions between my biological arm and my robotic one.
So for the next piece, we're going to do something we never tried before for this piece, which is have Shimon listening also to Jason and to his arm and try to synchronize with him. And Mason, who will tell you about his research after this piece, actually worked all night long yesterday just to make it work for today. So this is a world premiere of this piece with multiple instruments and Shimon and Jason interacting with each other. Hopefully it will work.
My name's Mason, like Gil said. How are you doing? So I really hope you've enjoyed everything so far tonight, because most of what you've seen is straight out of my PhD dissertation, which I defended a few weeks ago. So, thanks. So I work in Gil's group, and he sort of gave the gist of it, but essentially what we're doing is building machines that use artificial intelligence to listen to music and to generate music and to then interact with people based off of this underlying intelligence. And so I've had a great time in the lab and working on all of this stuff, and I'm really fortunate to be here, and I'm really appreciative that all you've come. And we've got one more piece for you. And first, I just want to thank everyone that's played with us. Deepak Gopinath on drums. Daniel Gilman on trumpet. And of course, Gil and Jason. So we've got one more piece called Il Tour 3 with Daniel.
Thank you very much. And actually, we can open it to about 10 to 15 minutes of questions, follow-up questions if you want. We'll be happy to tell you more about the project. There are microphones if anyone wants.
I keep looking at the head bouncing up and down, and I'm trying to figure out what role that head plays. Is there a screen in the front? What is that?
So the head does have a camera inside that worked at some point. It doesn't work anymore. But we had some applications where it looked at the human musicians and responded. We believe that for robots, it's very important to be gestural. And in music in general, it's a lot about movement, and not only about the sound that is created, but the movement around the sound and the movement that generates sound. So for example, when it detects a beat, when you saw in the first piece, when I played some tempo, it detects what the tempo is and starts to nod with me, and immediately, we dig the music together, and the feeling is completely different. You go to a live show to see things that you cannot see at home when you listen to music. You want to see the musicians interacting with each other, and so does Shimon. We can look at him, we can synchronize, we can coordinate, we can anticipate what he's going to do, and with the cameras that he had in his head, but later we actually used a Kinect, a different camera that can give us depth as well. He can actually look at us and respond to us, how we move, and all of this together create a much more engaging musical experience.
Input to Shimon acoustic or electric? That is there a direct electric connection, or is it all acoustic?
So we tried everything. This show today, it listens to my keyboard through some protocol that is called MIDI. So what I play, it understands through MIDI. But we also tried, especially with Shimi, to listen to audio. And as you have seen, only one Shimi worked today. One of them is very sad right now. But Shimi listens to audio as well and does everything, the beat detection and some of the movement and the changing of the movements based on what it listens. So you can put any song next to it and it can respond to it. There's some hands here. And feel free to ask questions, other members.
Is the robot right there like bowing, or is he just like and trying to be funny bowing, or is he like getting rusty and something like that?
So sometimes robots go to a big farm up the sky, and what happened to this robot? He's not bowing. He's just lost his power, and he's not completely dead. He will come back to life, but he's not working right now.
Yeah, I'm wondering what kind of processing horsepower was required for the prosthetic as well as for Shimon.
I'll let Mason ask. Mason.
Okay. So for Shimon, there's an immense amount of computation for generating the improvisation. So a lot of what you heard was real-time interacting with Gil, but then there was some parts where it was pre-composed. It generated its improvisation beforehand, so before it even got on stage, and that takes hours and hours and hours. And so I let that run. It's a lot of computation. With Jason's arm, it's actually not too much. There's the reading of the EMG signal, which does some, but then the note generation and how he's controlling it, it's nothing compared to what Shimon is doing.
Hi. So jazz has like a lot of key changes and it's pretty random. So did you guys give it sort of a template of like the chord progressions, or did you do you have to play a little bit for it to kind of find the key and whatnot?
So for what you saw tonight, we give Shimon the chord progressions beforehand, and then it generates the improvisation over that. And so it always understands the harmonic context within the piece. But then we've also done some stuff where we just let it generate on its own. So we give it a little seed, so we might play something on piano or give it the first 4 measures of a Mozart piece or something, and then let it generate from there. And that's all completely autonomous, so without any additional harmonic context.
So Mason, there's a lot of people here interested in the AI and the machine learning, and I heard multiple people talking about deep learning. Maybe you want to say something about your latest deep learning work?
Okay. Yeah. So Shimon did some machine learning tonight where it was generating the improvisations, but also how we get it to generate music is using deep learning or deep neural networks. And so what we do is we feed Shimon a pretty broad representation of music, everything from classical music to jazz improvisations to pop music, and we let it sort of generalize this big picture of music. And then from there, once it has this general idea of what music is, then it becomes more specific, where we narrow it down to a particular genre. And that's using deep learning, because it understands context, if we give it an initial seed that is within the context of jazz or within the context of classical, it should continue to generate within that style. And that's just based off of because it's seeing examples in that domain.
We have time for a couple of more questions.
I have a question for Jason. I'm just wondering, does your brain have to think differently as a musician with the robot arm as compared to when you were playing, with two arms?
Can you guys hear me? You guys hear me good?
There's that microphone there.
Here's a microphone.
So with the one that's generated by me, not so much. It's pretty similar to like the striking I would do with my wrists and fingers. The second stick that had its mind of its own, it's definitely a whole new ball game there. Sometimes it's interesting, sometimes it's awesome. Either way, it's inspiring, and ultimately I can choose whether or not to have the arm on a drum or not. So even if it is playing, I can choose whether or not to have it on a drum. So I still have the overall control, but yes, it's definitely different and interesting.
Okay, so we saw Shimon, right, calibrating before different pieces. I'm guessing that's what was happening at the din 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 din.
Yeah.
So how close are we to a version of Shimon that auto-detects the location of the marimba, for example, with the camera, that sort of thing? I'm just interested in that aspect of it as well.
So that's possible, and actually Shimon it understands where its arms are. And so the calibration that you heard is actually something to do with the music and loading in the piece that we're about to play. And so giving me the cue that I know it's loaded properly. So it's not really for Shimon, it's for me. But yeah, but with Shimon's camera and with the state of the art in computer vision today, identifying different keys on a marimba is definitely within the realm of possibility. We're not doing that with this, but that would be something that's possible. I usually make the argument that we don't need to because the marimba is not moving, but tonight you saw that it moves. so maybe it would be good to have something to reinforce, what it's playing.
Now that Mason is graduating, maybe one student away from getting to that for another couple of years.
Can Shimon run through Bluetooth?
What was the question?
Can Shimon run through Bluetooth?
Yeah, possibly. So right now, with Bluetooth and through wireless, you run the risk of dropping messages. And so right now we have a wired solution. So actually, with one of the pieces you saw that one of the shimmies didn't play, and that's just because it didn't get the message, and it's probably because everyone here has phones and there's a lot of wireless traffic. So it worked during rehearsal, and then once it's filled up, it's a little more risky to send things wirelessly. So with Shimon, we do the wired solution just so we don't have to risk dropping notes or dropping messages. So Shimon's central computer is actually this one right here. So actually, this is controlling both Jason's arm and Shimon.
So
one last question.
Are you guys going to go on the road as a jazz club?
We are on the road. We are here in Aspen. Yeah. In the last couple of years, we've been in Shanghai and Istanbul and Brisbane and a bunch of places in the United States and some Russia, in St. Petersburg.
And Colbert, yes.
And Colbert to end the Today Show. So yes, we are traveling. It's not easy. It's very heavy and it's expensive to ship it and so on. But places like this are very generous to bring us. So we really thank you. And thank you very much for coming today.